Welcome to Connecting with World Classrooms via Skype, how to set up Skype talks. This is a recorded version of the webinar presented on July the 1st at 5 p.m. At the end of this webinar, you will be directed to our website where you can download this presentation and print your certificate of attendance. You will find this under the section where it says More. Recording of this webinar is strictly forbidden, but as you can tell, I recorded it myself. Skyping. Have you ever Skyped before? Have you ever thought of Skyping with a foreign classroom? Well, if you didn't know how to, this webinar will answer your questions. Foreign language standards. Standard 5 for modern foreign languages asks for students to participate in multicultural communities at home and around the world. Also, you are to show evidence that they use the foreign language for personal enjoyment. Skyping can certainly cover this standard. So if you have to justify Skyping in your classroom, whereas Skyping is blocked out from your school, this is one way to go about proving that you need Skyping in your room. We first got involved when we did a pretend Skype for a video contest with Actful a couple years ago. And we soon learned the ins and outs of Skyping through trial and error. So first of all, can we Skype from school? Well, you will have to get it approved by your IT guys and your administration. And as I mentioned earlier, just bring up the foreign language standard and they will probably allow this to happen in your room. So you can use your personal laptop with a webcam and microphone which is built in, or you may want to buy a webcam for your school computer and buy an external microphone. Be sure to hook up the laptop and computer to the Promethean board or your screen and projector so all students will be able to see. Make sure that you have some high quality speakers. So basically the way Skyping works is that you have the students come up to your computer to speak into your computer microphone one at a time. And everybody can see the class or the person that you're Skyping with on their projector. Finding classrooms. How can you find these classrooms to Skype with us? Well, the site to go on is http://education.skype.com. On this site, you can set up projects or you can find people with existing projects and join them. You can also find teachers by country on there. So join a project or create your own. Here's one that somebody had posted called ¿Cómo estás? You can see many projects where people are trying to connect with your classes. So how do you set up a session? Well, after you post your own project, teachers will start contacting you. So the first thing you need to do is request the teacher to add you as a contact. It's sort of like on Facebook where people cannot just talk randomly to others. They have to be friends. So on Skype, this is called a contact. So we need to pay attention when they come online. Start chatting with them on the instant messenger. So first thing you may want to say is hello or hi. And if they actually talk back, you need to use simple language to get started and then get them to narrow down a time to Skype with your class. this is not as easy as it sounds. It may take several exchanges, lengthy exchanges, before you agree on a time. Make sure that you take into consideration the different time zones. Sample chats can be found on my website. Also, you may email them and discuss a date and time to Skype via email. Recording your Skype conversation. Okay, once you actually have a Skype talk scheduled in your classroom, be sure that you have a way to record it. Use recording software such as Pamela, or you can simply videotape your conversation with a digital camera, but be sure to darken the room a little bit so your Promethean board or your projector and screen can be seen clearly. Our first Skype session was with a class in Mexico City. So we scheduled a meet and greet session. We must remember that there's a time delay. So when you say something, you have to give it a split second for it to arrive in the other classroom. So speak slowly and clearly. Discuss what surprised the students the most about Skyping with a foreign classroom. So my students' reactions were as follows. These are all quotes from my students. How wild and crazy they acted, spoke English so well, clapped a lot, teachers' relaxed attitude about the Skype, how similar they were to us, clothing styles, attitudes, hairstyles, music. Students had a very nice school, that our planned introductions went out the window, and we ended up just chatting. They had no fear to meet new people. They didn't hold back and said anything they were thinking. Personal questions they asked. They even sang a song for us. Our project was to compare high schools from Spanish-speaking countries to our schools. We pulled the program of studies from their websites to compare with ours, and we found it to be quite similar. We generated a set of 15 generic questions to ask. And when I say keep the relationship alive, what I mean by that is once you find a good Skype contact, it's a good idea to keep calling back every once in a while. Why search for all new contacts if you have a good one? The next step was to Skype with a school in Guatemala. This school was an IB girls' school. The students were quite surprised about how different the girls behaved in Guatemala versus the students in Mexico. After reciting a short poem to us and interpreting it for us in Spanish and in English, they patiently answered all of our questions. So this is what my students quoted after this Skype talk. The Guatemalans were more respectful and waited while someone was speaking. They were well behaved, spoke mostly Spanish. They let us talk. Much more organized, with an overall better experience than the Skype to Mexico. We learned more about their culture and beliefs. They were more polite, more formal. And we were more prepared this time, as were they. More quotes. The Guatemalans were wearing uniforms, while the Mexican students were wearing brand name clothing. The Guatemalan class was more prepared to speak to us and had very good answers to our questions. They spoke in Spanish rather than English. They were calmer. They talked a lot in Spanish. Then we Skyped with a school in Spain. Actually, this was in Ibiza, which is about approximately right there. This was an afternoon class, and we Skyped with them several times. We at one point had a discussion if band is a sport, because my students were members of the band and they thought that should be considered as a sport. So our reaction to the Skype talk to Spain was as follows. English is just as hard for them as Spanish is for us. It was a good way to learn how people in other countries speak. The girls seemed shy. I liked watching their facial expressions when they didn't understand us. It made me want to learn Spanish more fluently. Awesome, good sound quality. You will see that the Skype talks, sometimes they go well and sometimes they do not. For example, the Skype talk to Guatemala, at first we had very poor sound quality, but then it improved. But this talk to Spain was simply outstanding. We learned about the difference in their pronunciation. Of course, they would have a different accent in Spain. Our project conclusions were that schools require more foreign language classes. There is greater interest and motivation in learning other languages. They have similar interests in personalities. They were very outgoing and enthusiastic. They were very interested in our personal lives. They were surprisingly comfortable with technology. They have similar school schedules. Nobody seemed to be working after school. They have fewer breaks and vacations, and soccer is clearly the most popular sport. Be open to possibilities. The teacher from Mexico invited us to do a rally with his students. So the idea was that 4 teams from our school were supposed to compete with 4 teams from their school in a collaborative activity. However, I was never able to connect more than 2 computers at any one time to Skype, via Skype, to other classes. So this kind of fell through. But as you can see on the picture, we did have 2 computers that could manage this, which were my personal laptop and my desktop. So what was next? Next was phase 2 of Skyping. This was this last school year. I came up with the idea of doing a Classroom Connect. So the idea was that we would connect students with native speakers of Spanish. This is my Spanish 3 class. They are not all on their computer Skyping. They're actually just doing some online work. So we first started gathering contacts, and here was a very good contact from Spain. This teacher is a teacher in Zaragoza, and we learned a host of stuff about Spain and what teaching in Spain is like. We gathered another contact. This is a teacher named Pablo in Argentina. We spoke to Pablo several times. On the top you see Pablo speaking to my student, Jed. Right here you see my night class students talking also to Pablo. And here's also a girl speaking to Pablo. So that was very fun. And he even introduced us to his daughter. You can see her right there, because he was Skyping from his house. Our favorite contact that we gathered this year was Florencia in Argentina. She Skyped with us numerous times. So this was my other night class, and then she spoke to us many times on the high school level as well. So the teacher in Spain provided us with pen pals. This is his class right there, and these are my students acting out a security airport scene. So my students decided to take a virtual trip to Zaragoza, Spain to visit these pen pals, and we made an actual green screen video. I will be offering a green screen webinar at one point, which you may want to join, so check my website for when we schedule that. We're still talking to Omar's class. You see Omar right there? Okay, this is one of my classes. So with whom will you Skype? Get set up on Skype and browse the other teachers' projects from around the world. You will simply be amazed what they are doing. Join an existing project or post your own and wait for responses, as I did. You can also search for teachers by countries. Now, not every single country will have people on Skype, but most do. Or, of course, you can contact top people in your field on their website to see if they would like to Skype with your class. I have some resources and a bibliography available on my website. So thank you for participating in our webinar. Please take a second to note the address of my website or take a picture of this QR code with your scanner. Thank you very much for participating in our webinar, and we hope to hear from you soon.